I've had a stalker for about 4 years. He was never aggressive or sent me proper threats, so stubborn as I am, I did my best to ignore him and not give him the satisfaction of showing him any fear. To be honest, after a while, I wasn't scared anymore since he almost never came close to me. I know being stalked can affect people severely, even in a case like mine, and that's totally valid, but I guess I just got lucky and I was never really psychologically affected by it. His stalking behavior mostly just consisted of sending me letters and gifts, such as photos of my own apartment building from the outside, things he dug out of my trash can, and so on. I called the police many times, but they weren't able to, or really tried to be honest, catch or identify him. About 3 weeks ago, I discovered the German version of r/IMA, and thought that people might want to know what it's like to have a stalker. Since I barely use any social media aside from Reddit and have no personally identifying information here, I didn't think he'd ever see it. One person even asked, "Does he know you're putting him on blast on Reddit?" And I answered, maybe. Maybe it would make him angry, maybe he'd be turned on. Don't know, don't care. Well, I know the real answer now. He did see it and he did not like it. Like I said, he was never aggressive and never came close to me. The closest I know of was when he sent me a picture of myself unlocking my apartment door, taken from the corner of the steps above. Sorry if that makes no sense, I just don't know how else to explain it, but I consider myself a pretty vigilant person, and I'm thinking that he might have a hidden camera there instead of being there to take the photo himself. I think I would have noticed him if he did. I don't know how he got the wind of the AMA, but he did. The next week was quiet. There were no letters and I didn't see him anywhere. Then he left me letters with printed out questions and answers from the AMA. He also left me a long hateful letter towards my boyfriend about an issue I had posted on the German version of Am I the Asshole? His letters were never hateful like that before, though he never seemed happy with my boyfriend. He wrote about how I should share the spotlight with him since I got so much attention thanks to him. A few days later I got a gift, but this time he didn't leave it in my mailbox or in my car like he usually did. No, this time he left it inside the apartment building right in front of my door. I didn't take it inside my apartment, but opened it outside. It was a pretty big box, which was also unusual, and it was taped shut. As I'm typing it out, I realized that it wasn't a good idea at all and could have ended badly for me, but luckily he didn't send me a bomb or anything. He did, however, send me several zip ties, a roll of tape, the kind you use to tape off walls when painting, a TV remote with most buttons picked off, a pack of band-aids with a few used ones, not actually, just made to look that way according to the police, and a framed picture of me. I could tell the picture was taken a few days ago and my boyfriend was next to me but cut out of the photo. The frame was shattered and the package was full of glass shards, clearly more than just what could have fallen out of the frame, and they were also intentionally put inside the crumpled newspaper that was stuffed in there to keep it all in place. I called the police right away and gave it to them. They were more concerned this time. Finally, thanks, and told me they'd send patrol cars more frequently. He didn't show up or leave any letters/gifts for about another week and a half, but 8 days ago it started again. I found letters in my mailbox where he wrote about how he wasted his time on me and how I haven't been appreciating his effort. Also how he was wrong about me being special. 5 days ago I left my apartment in the morning and heard a crunch sound as I stepped on my doormat. He put broken glass under it in the night. I went off to work because I was in a hurry and I was just going to make my boyfriend call the police. But then I found my car had also been vandalized. The sides were scratched, the lights smashed, and the windshield had a phrase painted on it. "It's time soon," with my last name. I went back inside and called the cops myself. They found the same phrase on a note under the doormat. This time they really took me seriously, which might have been because I was just mad at this point, which I made very clear. If for some reason you're like me and just too stubborn to be afraid of a stalker like mine, then all of this, letters, gifts, photos, even the damn glass under my doormat, is just really annoying and inconvenient. But my car is useless to me now, and that threat scared even me. I did, however, have a dash cam in my car, and it caught everything. The police said they took the footage as evidence, even though the dash cam footage wasn't of high quality, and I had given them photos of him that were just as good before, but they said it's not enough. And they told me they'll look into it further and promise to send more patrol cars again. Then it was quiet for 2 more days. Until 2 days ago, somebody rang the doorbell just after 4 a.m. My boyfriend and I got up, but we were both hesitant. I saw blue lights outside, and just as I got up, I heard them shouting, "This is the police. Please open the door." They told us they were called by one of our downstairs neighbors who came home from his night shift about an hour earlier and heard someone else entering the building after them before the door fell shut. My neighbors know of my situation, and I've asked them to make sure they don't let strangers into the building. This neighbor then went into his own apartment and looked through the peephole. We have motion-activated lights in the stairway, so he waited to see if they turned back on. Then he saw a middle-aged man walk upstairs. Above this neighbor are only me and my boyfriend and a single mom with 3 kids who probably won't be getting any visitors at 3 a.m., so he called the police. They came and found my stalker 1/2 floor above me on the stairs. He should have been able to see the cop car since there's a little window up there and they had their lights on, but he either missed them or wanted to get caught. They found a pocket knife on him and he confessed to being my stalker right away. He's finally caught. They got him. It took 4 years, a provocative Reddit post, and one very vigilant and caring neighbor, but he's finally done. For now at least. He's facing several charges and I've collected every single piece of evidence over the past 4 years. I don't know what kind of outcome I can expect, but for now I finally got some peace.
It was New Year's Eve when my coworker Derek asked if I could house sit for the weekend and watch his dog while he visited family upstate. Derek had started only a couple months back, but I had grabbed lunch with him a few times and he seemed like a decent lad. Besides, the idea of a quiet night making some extra cash sounded better than fighting crowds at some bar at 35. Derek left Saturday morning and said he'd be back late Sunday. He gave me the instructions while handing over the keys. I was supposed to feed Bella twice a day, let her out in the fenced backyard, and not let her jump on the furniture. Bella was a sweet-tempered, small husky mix, so it felt like easy money at first, until I took her out back to the fence yard to run around at 6 that evening. At first she was happy playing fetch, but then she spotted a squirrel near the back fence and squeezed through a gap I hadn't noticed. It was a section where the chain link had come loose from the post. Before I could grab her collar, she was gone, crashing through the brush into the woods behind the property. I went after her. The woods weren't deep, maybe 50 yards before they opened onto a neighboring street, but it was getting dark and cold. I called her name, stumbling over roots and dead branches, and finally found her sniffing around a fallen log about 100 feet in. But when we got back to the house, I noticed the back door was open, swinging slightly in the wind and hitting the frame. My skin crawled. I was sure I closed it, but maybe the latch hadn't caught, or the wind had pushed it open, I thought. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, yet I still checked the front door, which was still locked, and did a quick walkthrough of the house. Nothing seemed disturbed. I chalked it up to my own carelessness and tried to shake off the unease. Later that night, my girlfriend Clara came over. Derek knew about it and said it was fine. She got off work after midnight and drove straight there. We settled into the living room with some wine and watched the ball drop on TV. Bella was curled up at her feet. Around 1, we decided to head to bed. Clara wanted water first, so she went to the kitchen while I took Bella to the spare room. I was just setting up the futon when I heard Clara's shrieks. I ran out and found her on the kitchen floor near the doorway, half slumped against the cabinet. One hand was clamped over her mouth, the other braced on the tile as if she'd barely caught herself. Her eyes were fixed on the back of the house. Through the glass, I saw a figure already moving away. They weren't tall, maybe 5 feet something, wearing a dark hoodie and a plain white mask that made them look like a mannequin. They vaulted the deck railing and disappeared into the darkness below. A second later, we heard the thud of them hitting the ground, followed by footsteps tearing through the underbrush. Claire grabbed my arm and said it had been inside, standing right there when she turned on the kitchen light. And said it had been inside, standing right there when she turned on the kitchen light. And said that it had shoved past her before running for the door. That was when I noticed the crowbar near the back door. It had been dropped on the hardwood. The metal was scuffed where it had stuck the frame. Whoever it was had brought it with them, and they'd been close enough to use it. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called 911. The dispatcher kept us on the line while 2 patrol cars were silent. We locked ourselves in the spare bedroom with Bella, who was pacing and whimpering. Every creak of the house made my heart race. The police arrived within 12 minutes. 2 officers cleared the house room by room while a third stayed with us. When they regrouped, one of the officers asked if we could come upstairs to Derek's room. They discovered a small camera hidden in the smoke detector, another in the bathroom vent, and one in the guest room where I had been planning to sleep. The lead officer opened Derek's closet. On the top shelf, behind some boxes, were 3 external hard drives and a laptop I hadn't seen before. She said they were going to need to take everything as evidence, and that they would need to contact the homeowner. Clara looked at me and asked what the hell it was. I didn't have an answer. The officers wouldn't tell us what was on the drives. They said the house was now part of an active investigation and that we needed to come with them. We gave our statements separately at the station. They took our clothes, photographed the marks on Clara's arms, and asked the same questions again and again. How did I know Derek? What did we touch? When did we arrive? And when did we last see Derek? We sat in separate rooms for hours while more officers came and went. I tried calling Derek. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later and got the same result. Sometime after sunrise, they let us go. During the follow-up interviews, I learned the hard drives had hours of footage from the hidden cameras of people who didn't know they were being filmed. The detective wouldn't elaborate, but the look she gave me told me it was bad. Derek never came back to work. His desk was cleared out by security the following week. The house went up for sale 2 months later and was sold to a quick buy company for under market value. No one ever told me who the masked person was. The police never followed up about it. My best guess is that it was someone who'd been recorded and returned, prepared to erase the footage, or the man who got them. And if the timing had shifted even slightly, it could have been either Claire or me who would have been erased, or the man who got them. And if the timing had shifted even slightly, it could have been either Claire or me who would have been erased. My husband Tom and I bought the Seaside Motel in October. It was a simple 10-room inn, standing along a cliff overlooking the Pacific. It came with an office and a narrow parking lot that tested your skills every time you pulled in. But it was our dream project, and we thought we could make it work. That New Year's Eve was our first holiday managing the place. We were fully booked by mostly families and couples escaping the crowded beach towns an hour south. By 11:30, things had pretty much settled down. Tom and I locked up the office and started walking back to our unit at the end of the building when we noticed the car. An old Honda Accord was parked at an angle near the cliff edge that I didn't recognize from any of the guest cars that had checked in. The engine was running, but the headlights were off. I squinted and could make out a silhouette hunched over the driver's seat. Tom might have felt the creeps too, because he too slowed down as we got closer. We were only a couple steps away when the engine shut off and a man wearing tattered jeans and a dark hoodie got out. He looked like one of those long-haul truck guys who spent most of their life driving around, but he was extremely pale and thin and smiled shadily. He told us he was looking for a place to crash for the night and asked if we had any availability. I told him we didn't and gave him the name of a larger motel about 15 miles up the highway instead. He nodded, but instead of getting back in his car, he started asking about our guests. How many families did we have? Whether they had kids? The questions felt wrong and way too invasive, so Tom stepped forward, emphasized that the property was private, and told him if he wasn't a guest, he needed to leave. The man nodded again, mumbled something about figuring things out, got back in his car, and drove off. We watched him turn onto the highway heading north before we went to our room and tried shaking it off. Around 1 a.m, the office phone rang. It was the couple in room 4. They said someone had been knocking on their door, asking if they needed help. When they looked through the peephole, nobody was there. Tom said we'd check it out. We were putting on our shoes when the phone rang again. This time it was the family in room 7. Someone had tried their door handle. Their kids were awake and scared. We grabbed our phones and flashlights and went outside. The parking lot looked exactly how we left it. All the guest cars were still there in their spots. but tucked at the far end by the cliff was the same Honda Accord. The guy was back. I felt my heart pound in my chest as Tom aimed the flashlight toward the car and called out. But nobody answered, and the car seemed to be empty. We started moving along the building, checking between the parked cars and looking into the darker corners where the overhead lights didn't quite reach. Suddenly, I felt a presence near the edge railing. I flashed the light towards it to find him standing near the edge with his back to us, still as a statue. His hoodie was pulled over, hiding most of his face, but he seemed to be looking down at the water. Tom yelled over at him, asking him what the hell he was doing back here. The guy turned around really slowly. His face looked different than before. It was empty, like nobody was home behind his eyes. Suddenly, he dropped, got straight down on his hands and knees, and started crawling toward us. I screamed. The flashlight fell from my hand as I bolted for the office. My hands were shaking so bad I almost couldn't get the key in the lock. Tom was right behind me, yelling at me to hurry. I got the door open, and we scrambled inside. Tom slammed it shut and locked it just as the man reached the steps. He threw himself against the door so hard the whole frame shook. I called 911 while Tom braced himself against the door, making sure it remained closed. I could see him through the window. His face was pressed up against the door, eyes wide and crazy looking. He was staring with his mouth hanging open. Then he stopped, backed away from the door, turned around, and crawled toward the section of the parking lot that led to the cliff trail. The 911 operator told us to stay inside, said officers were on the way. They arrived maybe 15 minutes later, searched the entire property, but found nothing. One officer asked if we checked the edge of the cliff. Said people had jumped from there before. They searched until dawn. They even brought in a helicopter around 4 in the morning to check the coastline, but it was like the earth had swallowed them whole. We stayed open the rest of the weekend for the guests who'd already paid. But most nights, we just sat in the office with the lights on, watching the parking lot and checking the cameras we'd installed the week before. Every time a door closed or someone walked to their car, I jumped. The guests from rooms 4 and 7 checked out early Sunday morning. They said they couldn't feel safe. I refunded them without argument. We sold the motel in August. Couldn't do it anymore. Every time I walked across that parking lot, I saw him crawling between the cars. The police never followed up. I called a few times, but they said without a body or evidence of a crime, there wasn't anything to investigate. Said the man had probably just been on drugs or having some kind of breakdown, but I don't think that's what it was. I think he was looking for something or someone, and when we didn't give him what he wanted, he tried a different approach. But I still wonder if he ever came back. If the new owners ever saw that Honda Accord parked at an angle near the edge. I hope not. But I don't think we were the first. And I don't think we'll be the last.
Don't take this too seriously. I'm sure there's a logical explanation for this, but I'm glad I didn't take the chance. Super creepy nevertheless. About 2 weeks ago, I booked an Airbnb in another country. I was going there for a concert. The room was cheap, so I knew I wasn't going to stay in a 5-star hotel, but it was only for one night, so I didn't mind as long as I had a bed. To start off, it already wasn't a great trip because my data roaming apparently didn't work in that country at all. I logged into a cafe Wi-Fi and planned my route in advance as best as I could. I managed to be at the house in time, rang the only bell and waited. Nobody came out. I repeatedly rang and waited for 5 minutes. I noticed the door had a slot for mail and looked through it. I was shocked to see an entrance that looked like an abandoned barn. A super dusty couch right in front of the door. Pieces of furniture covered in cloth. Very dirty and extremely old. I usually love old houses, but that just did not look like a house that was in use, or prepared for guests at all. I wondered if I was at the wrong house and what to do now, as a super old, unwashed looking guy walked towards the door from the street. I asked him if he knew where the Airbnb was. He mumbled something which I interpreted as positive, so I asked him if he was Tim, my host. He said yes and opened the door for me. Well, I already described the entrance. The centerpiece was definitely the super old creaky staircase that led to the upper part of the house. I followed him upstairs. He was heaving and coughing and stinking of cigarettes, which wasn't exactly pleasant, but alright. The second floor was also abandoned looking, super dark with clustered furniture hung with cloth and randomly thrown together, and a super creepy curtain that I couldn't catch a glimpse behind. Another stair up, and we were in my hallway, which was honestly the worst one. Cracks in the walls, old rule paintings, and the like. It seriously looked like the set of a horror movie. I usually don't have a problem with decor like that. I'm goth, so anything darkly inclined is my jam, but everything looks so badly taken care of that even I got the major creepo vibes from this house. He showed me the bathroom, which had a huge hole missing in the bathtub tiling and the wall. Everything looked super dirty. He showed me to my bedroom, which was honestly okay. There were just a lot of creepy dolls on the shelves that threw me off, but the bed seemed fine. I asked him if they had Wi-Fi and he said no, which sucked, because that meant I would have no way to communicate in there. I asked him when checkout was the next day. He said, "It doesn't matter." Like, okay. He then dragged himself up to the 4th story, which was in complete pitch black darkness, by the way, so that gave me very weird vibes. I definitely didn't want to get into the shower, so I just quickly changed and charged my phone. When I went to the bathroom, I realized that I didn't even notice the creepiest part. There were no locks, at all. Not for the bathroom, not for the toilet, and not for my room. Which freaked me out. I also noticed that there were so many half-used items that someone looked like guests before me had left there, like shower gels, toothbrushes, and toothpaste. A random lash curler just lay abandoned on the shelf. Not like a here you go for your use in case you forgot yours kind of way, but it just looked like someone left it and nobody bothered to clean it. I already made up my mind that I would definitely not stay the night in this house. My mind was just spinning scenarios. What if all these products were left by people before me? And why did nobody leave horrendous reviews? Because I got murdered? LOL. I was super spooked. I seriously debated if I should take all my shit to the concert because it did not feel safe in the slightest. But my back was really hurting from my heavy backpack, so I just took my essentials and left the room as soon as I could. Not without sliding a folded paper under the door, so I'd see if someone tried to open it in my absence. When I was coming down the staircase, I heard someone turning a key in the front door. I was a bit confused, but in the advert, it said that a couple lived there, so I expected to see the wife or girlfriend of the guy I already met. Instead, a middle-aged man enters and says, "Hey, I'm Tim." All I could think of, then who the heck is that other guy? I was shitting myself inside, but had brief small talk with him and finally left the house. I was shook. Luckily, I made it in time to the venue and the concert was worth it. Afterwards, I was so tired that I knew I couldn't stay awake for the whole night, so I checked into a hostel. That was also not perfectly clean, but at least they had Wi-Fi, a proper shower, and a door that had a lock. The next day, I got thrown out at 10 a.m., so I made my way to get the rest of my stuff. I don't know why, but I checked the mail slot again and jumped back. The old guy was just snoring on the couch directly in front of the entrance door. I tried my best not to wake him up and snuck into my room to get my stuff. The door hadn't been opened, thankfully. And I finally left this crazy place. I don't know if I overreacted, but honestly, from the 2 Tims to the missing locks and a checkout that didn't matter, if I assumed the worst, this would have been the perfect setup to assault or murder someone. Best case scenario, nothing would have happened, but I probably would have had panic attacks all night. Usually I love solo traveling, but this was just too much.